right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Fire Safe Sonoma's monthly speaker series. I'm Roberta McIntyre, and I'm the President and CEO of Fire Safe Sonoma. We have a really cool speaker this month, kicking off 2024. And this is cool because this is our first presentation in 2024. Again, real quick, if you guys don't mind turning off your video while we do this. Let's see, I'll take care of that one. Okay, so thanks for joining us, everybody, and thanks for working with us on the presentation. Yeah, today we're going to learn about fire insurance, or actually insurance in general in Sonoma County, and that's a big deal for a lot of folks out here because some folks are losing their insurance, some people's premiums are going up, etc. And so we saw the presentation done by United Policyholders and did a presentation, and we're like, hey, we got to share this out with our folks so they can see what we're seeing here. It's really cool, good information. So that's coming up in a minute, but before that, I just wanted to let folks know that not last month, but then a month before, we were dark in December. But in November, our presentation was kind of interesting. We did kind of a history of Fire Safe Sonoma. We had a couple of the Fire Safe Sonoma old timers on and talked about the old days, how Fire Safe Sonoma got started and how we've evolved to where we are today. It was a pretty interesting ride. I was there for a lot of it, but not all of it. So if you guys are interested in that, that is on our YouTube channel. Take a look at that. And then this month, let's see, do we have, we're not quite there for the number of attendees. So we're at 23, Marika. Normally what I try to do, you guys, is if we have more than 24 attendees, I will do a raffle for a door prize. And so when I do that, it's usually something like a book relative to wildland fire safety and risk reduction. And I have a door prize ready. Marika, what do you think? Should I do the door? Oh, I'm sorry too. Let me also introduce Marika Ramson for the folks that don't know. She is also at Fire Safe Sonoma helping out. And then behind the scenes, you can't see him, is Harry Hubble. He's one of our Climate Corps fellows helping out as well. So Marika, what do you think? Should I push the envelope and do the give up the door prize anyway?
I think so.
Okay. So the door prize this month is this book by Ann Belden and Paul Glipson. It's called Inflamed, and it's a book. It's an in-depth accounting of folks and their personal accounts that were involved in the Tubbs fire, in a couple of the care facilities that were involved in that fire or those fires had some harrowing experiences. And so the two authors took a deep dive into those experiences and have, shared their stories so that, we all can learn from them. So the way I do this is after the presentation, probably in the next few days, I'll go into our Zoom account and see who attended, and anybody that was in attendance for the bulk of the presentation. Then they will go into a random raffle, and I will select somebody from that list to receive the door prize. And so if you see an email from Fire Safe Sonoma, particularly board president at firesafesonoma.org, that's me. If you see that in the next few days, it's not a scam. It's me asking you for your physical address so I can see where to mail the door prize. So that's in the works. So thank you guys for joining us. And I think that's all I have. Did I forget anything, Marika? I think I'm all caught up.
No, that's good. And I think we actually have plenty of people in the room right now.
Yeah, I feel better. I feel better. All right. So with that said, I am going to hand this off to And Barbour, our speaker this month, and she is actually a 2017 Tubbs Fire survivor. She following the fire, she organized a group, Coffey Strong, to help bring the neighborhoods back home. She met United Policyholders at that time and saw how informative they were about recovery in regards to insurance. In 2020, she was asked to do some volunteer work for them, and shortly after was offered a job as a coordinator for United Policyholders. So thanks, Anne, for joining us. And I am going to turn off my video and audio and enjoy the presentation. And just one last reminder, folks, to please keep your video and audio off till we're finished. And then always remember to put your questions in the chat as we go, and we'll get to all the questions at the end. So take it away, Annie.
Thank you, Roberta and Marika, and Harry on the backside. Hello, everyone. Annie Barbour with United Policyholders. A little bit about United Policyholders. We are a nonprofit that has been around for 32 years, since the Oakland Hill fires. And we've been advocating for consumers that entire time. We're funded with donations and grants only. We don't take any money from insurance companies. We're very careful about our reputation. We have 3 programs. One is Advocacy and Action, and Amy Bach is our founder, and she's also an attorney. She deals with most of that. We have input, but that's really beyond my scope. We have we have Roadmap to Preparedness, which is what we're doing here today. And we have Roadmap to Recovery. So what that looks like is we sit on the long-term recovery groups. I sit on the majority of them, and we help people navigate their insurance after disaster. We do the advising, best practices, what worked for our community, what works in other communities, and how do you navigate all that. So every community has different needs and different issues, and we try to wrap our head around that and help them as best we can. So to start the presentation today, I'd like to tell you that a lot of people think that the government will step in and help you after a disaster. The number one source of funds is insurance. It's not charity, it's not FEMA, and it's not even SBA. SBA loans take a certain amount of time to get approved, and you have to pay them back, obviously. FEMA money generally it caps out at $41,000. That's not going to be enough to build a home, but the average that payout is $6,000. So giving you that information just lets you know that there aren't resources out there if you do not cover it yourself, which is kind of scary. But I know that a lot of people are getting dropped. The insurance industry right now is a hot mess, to put it mildly. I'd like to tell you that I have a magic wand that will get you guys all off of the California Fair Plan and get you into regular insurance at an affordable cost. I can't do that today. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that, but the commissioner, Ricardo Laura, with the Department of Insurance, is working on it. He's had negotiations basically with State Farm, which is our #1 writer in California. And they're working towards coming in the middle, meeting in the middle. California has more oversight, more rules and regulations for insurance companies than most any other state. And to put it a little bit in perspective, some of this I understand. I don't like it, but I understand. I lost my home in 2017, 1,500 square foot tract home, 1970s tract home. My payouts, I had my home for 31 years before the fire, and I basically paid on average $1,200 a year for my insurance. My payout was somewhere between $750,000 and $800,000. So I understand from a business model why they're kind of clamping down on all this and rebelling. Doesn't make it easy on any of us, though. And we're advocating as quickly and as best we can to try to help bridge that. For those of you, whether you have a California FAIR plan or a regular insurance policy, you need to have all of the same components in that policy, and you need to understand what those buckets of money will cover. Your dwelling is fairly self-explanatory until you do the deep dive. Excuse me. And the deep dive is, how much do you have per square foot? Do you have any replacement value? That would be a little line item underneath your declaration page that says you have 150% replacement value or 125. We really recommend you have at least 25%, but ideally 50%. And it will say 150%. That just simply means what you have plus another 50%. That's how you compute how much you have to rebuild your home. So let's say your policy has $300,000 for your dwelling and you have 50% replacement costs. That means you have $450,000 to replace your dwelling. You need to divide that out by how many square feet you have and what does that number look like. Talk to a contractor. Ask them if that's even in the ballpark. There are a couple of other things that you need to take into into your consideration in all this. So I was Coffey Park. We had a lot of different options. When I rebuilt, we had people who would do a custom home. And if you rebuilt the exact same thing you had, and it's a one-off, that's still a custom home. Or we had production builders who were willing to come in and give us economy of scale. And because of that, the prices were lower and the rebuild happened quicker. So in 2018, I probably saved $150,000 on my rebuild because I did and I was able to go with a production builder. If you know that you don't live in that type of a home or an area, then you need to take that into consideration because now you have to pay for all your architecture, your soil analysis. There's just different components that raise the prices of all of that. And you don't get the economy of scale of a larger builder where, you order 300 toilets, you're going to get a much better price than if you're ordering 2 of this one and 1 of that one. Other structures. Other structures are a shed, a detached garage. And so if you have a detached garage, then you don't add that square footage in, obviously, with your dwelling when you're figuring out how much you have per square foot, but you do need to make sure you have enough money to rebuild that garage in other structures. Your fences, a detached deck would be under that. Your personal property is pretty straightforward. You should have some replacement value in that also. And it'll be a replacement value endorsement. They are, in all likelihood, you're going to have more money in contents than what you have in your house or what you want to replace. But the bottom line is you still need that money and you'll probably need some of it to bridge the gap in your rebuild. Building code upgrades. I think most all policies have it now. There was a time when they didn't. That takes your home from the year it was built to the year you're rebuilding it. And all those state codes that they've put into place, you now have to comply with. And so that takes care of that bite of the money for the rebuild. A little example, because it's really hard to put a dollar figure on. My house was a 1,500 square foot 1970s tract home. I rebuilt in 2018. My code upgrades were $68,000. If I'd rebuilt the next year, it would have been 100,000 because I would have been required to have solar and I would have been required to have an electric car hookup. So you want to look into that. You can't take that money out of any other bucket. If you do not have enough in that, it comes right out of your pocket. And the reason that I'm going over all these different buckets is because even if you have the California Fair Plan, you need to know what you want to create in that California Fair Plan because it's all parceled out. It's like you build your own policy. It's kind of goofy. Your ALE or loss of use, that pays for, a lot of people think that pays for your mortgage, and it does not. You're expected to pay your normal bills. And ALE covers your rent at another place. There's different things that each insurance agency will allow to be charged under that. And so you should ask them what that is. But in my fire, what we found was really dominant was renting your contents. If you have a total loss, you don't want to have to go out and buy a bunch of stuff that you're going to put on the curb when you get back home because it's not going to fit in your rebuilt house. It's not going to be what you wanted. You're just wasting your money buying things. So you have a couch to sit on, you have a TV, you know, all that stuff in your house that you're lacking. So a difference in mileage. So if you're 20 miles away from your work now, instead of 3 or 4, they will pay that. My insurance paid for an electronic fence because I have a little dog who I moved in with my boyfriend and he lives a little bit rural and no fences. And so they did okay that and they paid that. So there's different things you can. What I really want to impress upon you is to make sure you have enough money for your rent to be covered, a bit inflated, because if we do have a declared disaster, that means rents all around go up. And I put an extra $500 in my policy for renting my contents, $500 a month. If you have a one-off fire, you're going to have up to 24 months. And if you have a declared disaster, legislature has been pushed through in 2018 to give you up to 36 months. So what does that figure look like? What's your total in that bucket? How much would you have a month if you had to use it for 36 months? I know that there's a ton of issues with California Fair Plan, people being dropped, the cost of insurance. All of these things are huge roadblocks for people. And we totally recognize it. And we just try to come up with best practices and ways to try to navigate all of that. If you do get pushed into the California Fair Plan, know that you'll also should piggyback that with a difference in condition policy for your liability, water damage. You won't have a complete policy because California Fair Plan does not offer those things. And California Fair Plan is now receiving 1,000 applications a day. So if you do get dropped, God forbid, and you get pushed into the California Fair Plan, just know that you have to get on it pretty quick to make sure that you have your insurance in place before your other policy expires. If you do get dropped, you do have some protection. They are supposed to give you a 75-day notice. You can utilize, if you live in a wildfire adjacent zip code, your insurer must reinsure you for a year. And if you've been in a disaster, in a fire zone, then that makes it 2 years. You have a moratorium. So that protects you a little bit. The best advice we can give you if you're dropped is to immediately get on the phone, get with a insurance agent or a broker. A broker is able to access a whole bunch of insurance companies and try to sell your policy to a multitude of agencies, whereas a captive agent is only going to perform for State Farm or Farmers, even though they all do have smaller, like Farmers has foremost underneath them. There's 4 or 5 agencies under almost all of these. You can go on to the California Department of Insurance and you can look for advice there on how to get insurance and, if they're finding anybody open. And that it's problematic. There's no doubt. I'm not waving a magic wand by any means. So really what we come down to is, how do we keep our houses from burning down? How do we try to stay off the California Fair Plan? And what resources do we have to do that? And in all of the things that we found, the biggest thing is embers and ember fires. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the IBHS. It's in North Carolina. Yeah, I think it's probably every guy's dream job. They build structures and then they throw wind and fire events at it and see what happens. And so what they've determined is that embers are the way these catastrophic fires are spreading. And so there's a list of things that you can do to harden your home. And probably most of you are very familiar with that. I'll have them put that in the chat. Improve your home's chances of surviving a wildfire. The biggest thing right now is do everything you can on this list, because the last thing you want to do, whether you have proper insurance or not, you just don't want to lose your home. You don't want to go through that. And if it means that you have to clear out 5 feet around your property, will it look stark? Will it make you sad? Yeah. If you have to take some trees out or at least prune them back so they're not overhanging, all of these things will help your house survive. One of the suggestions is special vents. Well, you don't have to get the special vents. You can take 1/8 inch mesh and you can go in underneath your house and cover them up that way, or do it on the outside, but make sure you wrap them. You don't want to go any smaller than 1/8 inch because that actually clogs up and that becomes a fire hazard. That last 5 feet between your house and your fence, they would like that to be metal. So that's usually your gate and the attachment, because fences act as wicks. So any of that and all of that you can do will only benefit you. And as a community, when you see that you're finished with it, or you've done some of the things and you found them to be very doable, you're going to have some neighbors who need some help with it. And I implore you to go help them. We're only going to be as strong as our weakest link. And so that requires community. And we have community. We have in Sonoma County, we have an amazing community. Some tips to save. You can always raise your deductible. My deductible is at $5,000. I do not want to file a small claim because, quite frankly, they'll drop you if you have a claim or two. They're pretty consistent about that. You do as much mitigation as you can, which is we've already discussed. Recognize that insurance companies are using satellite and drone images to see your house from above. So they're seeing behind your fences. They're looking at, when they do the reports, they're doing 30 feet around your home. And that's what they're reporting on from what we've been told. We've had people in Coffey Park who've gotten a notice to fix or will drop you. And so far, I did a little poll on Facebook, and most of those, that's if that's the case where they have used the drone image and they've been able to see where you don't think they can see, they will give you a chance to fix that. So there is normally when you get your insurance policy, the amount of money on your dwelling, your contents, and your code upgrades will all be a percentage. That's what they base it off of. And some insurance companies say, okay, that's the policy we offer. Others will allow you to say, I don't have other structures. Can we reduce that? Except for my fence, can we reduce that to lower the cost of my insurance? I don't have that much in contents. So if you have 300,000 in contents, because that's what the amount on your dwelling dictates, and you know you don't have that, ask them if they can reduce that and if that will lower your insurance. And the other thing is, you're the consumer. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but when you call to get a quote on insurance, remember you're the consumer. Don't think twice about asking them for multiple quotes. I would get one with $1,000 deductible, $2,500 deductible, and a $5,000 deductible, and compare what the difference is. And if I had different buckets of money that I could reduce and my insurance company would allow me to, I would ask. So if I leave it where it is, I know it's this much. And if not, it's this much. Is it worth it to me to lower that? Or should I keep it where it is? So you're a shopper. We've all learned how to be good shoppers, but sometimes with insurance companies, we're a little intimidated by, can you give me a policy? Yeah, this is what I have for you. So a little bit about preparedness. You're going to want to make sure that you have as many of your important documents in a safe deposit box, or safes in one safe in Coffey Park survived. Many of them they just either they couldn't be opened, or but when they shook them, there was nothing in there. They're just ash in there. So if you had cash in there, if you had your pink slips, those were all gone. So I've now gotten a safe deposit box, and things like pink slips, house deed, passports, my will, my trust, insurance documents, home inventory, all of that, little flash drive, take pictures, do a video. Our phones are an amazing tool for us. Record all that, make that inventory. Know that we don't live in these beautiful homes that they show on TV, and that everything's not all perfect. So you're going to have to do some little work and pick up those boxes on the closet floor and open boxes and say, this is what's in here, and take a video of them. Open all your drawers, open all your cupboards. The hardest thing to do is to document what you lost when it's gone. So basic policies do have some risks, and they have some holes. So if you have a collection, you have jewelry, you have something of value, you can ask for an add-on, an endorsement that will cover that. And if they don't cover it, they'll tell you that they have a maximum. But on your basic, coins, guns, jewelry, all of them have a very low amount. We're talking 2,500, or so. If you have more than that, you need to look into how do you bridge that and how much that could cost. I think that this next subject is, I know that the majority of the people on this call are probably homeowners, but Renter's insurance, I'm going to go over a little bit just because I think it's really important for the overall recovery of an area. And we all have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, friends who are renting a house. Renter's insurance is fairly easy to get. It's not overly expensive. We've heard it's been as low as $11 a month. And the easiest way to navigate it, if the car insurance allows it, is to just add it to the car insurance so that they don't stop paying on it. You want to ask for as much loss of use as you can get. And what that will enable is if there's a PS, if there's, they shut down the power, people are out of their homes, they have to go to a hotel room, evacuation, it'll cover up to the limit of what they have in that bucket of money for loss of use. So a lot of our communities are living paycheck to paycheck. We all get that. And, being out of their home for a week, having to pay for all their food, not being able to cook, paying for a hotel room can put them over the edge. Also during a fire, if there is a fire, they don't have that safety net without renter's insurance. And those are the people in our community that have the most needs after disaster. And their immediate needs. Where are we going to live? How are we going to navigate this? Are they living in their cars? After the Paradise Fire, they all went to Chico and they slept in the parks. And that's not what we want for our community. We don't want it for anybody. So that renter's insurance, if this was when I did these in October, November, and December, I told people that they should get it started pay for a year for someone in their family who needs it. Get them started on it. Let them know how important it is. It's also important for the homeowners because in the long-term recovery groups, immediate needs comes first. And those are our immediate needs. And so when we get past immediate needs and we start doing unmet needs, that's where people who need a bridge to get back home, but they have most of it figured out, that bridge disappears quickly with how many people have the immediate needs. So you're kind of, you're keeping them safe and you're also making recovery for your area more productive and can be spread out a little bit more. Hopefully there's some money left in all that. Flood insurance, I'm just going to touch on really quickly. And flood insurance, less than 2% of homeowners or renters have flood insurance. That's a pretty low number. It's expensive. A lot of the discussions are always, do I need it? It doesn't pay as much. If you're concerned at all, you should look into it. And in the big picture, there's a 10 to 30 day wait period. So if you get a prognosis of, we're going to have Noah's Ark needing to be built, it's going to be too late to get renter's insurance. And so you want to look into it. You want to know how much it costs. You want to figure out whether that's advantageous for you. And it's really similar to the earthquake insurance. I have a house that I put earthquake insurance on. And I put that on there because it's an older home and it's paid off. So how much do I have to lose? Well, I would have to lose everything in that one, if I couldn't bridge the gap. And so everybody has to look at these. Insurance is expensive now. So I'm not going to go into a deep dive on either one of these because fire is our major issue in this area at this point. But we do live in earthquake zone. I will tell you that the CEA, which is the California Earthquake Association, has grants. It's called the Bolt and Brace. And if you have an older home, you can go in there and apply for this grant. It's kind of a lottery and it closes, I believe it's February 21st. Brace and Bolt program. So they will grant you up to $3,000 to help you strengthen your home, to check to have the foundation bolted, to modify things so that your home has a better chance of making it through. And if you are on the lower end of the spectrum financially, you have even more options with that. So go on to their website, take a good look, and see if that's something that could help you, and be very proactive about getting on that. You may not get it this year. Maybe you have to apply again next year, because they do treat it like a lottery. And last but not least, I would like to share some really basic tips and things that we don't think about until we're on that side of it. I would like everybody to write down 5 phone numbers that are people you would need to contact. One being out of the area if there was a disaster. You do not want people to be scared of how you are and to come in and try to save you or to get you out. Because we don't always have our phones on us. We can't always guarantee. My boyfriend would be really basic. He probably would have been on watching YouTube, and it probably would be dead. And then he'd have to try to find it, and he'd try to call it, and it would be dead. So we don't memorize phone numbers anymore. Write those phone numbers down, put them in an envelope. That's what I did with mine, because I write on every piece of paper that's in my car, and put it in your glove compartment so you can have that phone number. Someone else will have a cell phone for you to use, but if you don't have yours, if you don't get out the door, you drop it, can't find it, that's a pretty useful tool. We all have go bags, and I think it's amazing. Take pictures of your prescription drugs, though. You can take those pictures into most pharmacies, and they can give you a 5-day emergency fill. If you're not home when you have to, quote unquote, evacuate, you're not going to get your go bag. And that's just one less thing to be stressed about, trying to get a hold of your doctor, the long line that are calling, and then getting your prescriptions actually filled. Emergency alerts, we can't always depend on them. They've done studies in Sonoma County. We're at 60%. So 60% of people who sign up for emergency alerts actually get them. That's not a high percentage. So I have Watch Duty on my phone. I think it's a remarkable app that tells you when there's a fire, what they dispatch, when they have a hose around it, when they're doing cleanup. It gives you a really good idea of what's going on in real time. Also, neighbor to neighbor. So knowing that not everybody's going to get an alert, make sure you know your neighbors. If we didn't have a lot of alerts during the 2017 Tubbs fire, and neighbor to neighbor, we lost 5 people in my neighborhood. Now, I guess if you looked at the odds of 1,400 homes, that doesn't sound horrible, but it would be horrible if it had been me. The neighbor to neighbor thing was what saved us. Banging on each other's doors, calling each other, knowing who was home, who wasn't home. All of that was really important. When you get an alert that says you should evacuate, even if you know it's early on, please evacuate. They are now doing it in a very controlled fashion so that the traffic doesn't back up. And if you wait until those people who are closest to or farthest from the fire have to go, you're going to have traffic jams. People that took 2 separate cars, some of them got split up. We don't know if we're going to have cell phone coverage. How do you connect again? Are you stressed about whether the other person got out? I'd rather lose a car than not know whether my partner was safe, quite frankly. Make sure you have some cash. Hawaii, everything went down. Internet, gas stations, pumps, everything. Make sure you have some cash so that you at least can say, I have cash. You don't need to, I don't have to do a credit card. I just want a hotel room. I just want some food, whatever that looks like. And my final bit of advice is take a look around your house and really think about what you would take in an evacuation. If you had 5 minutes, 15 minutes, a half an hour, having lost everything, I got out the door with my dog, her leash, my purse, and I got dressed because it was in the middle of the night. I'm okay with that. Having lost everything, I would take a photo album and some of the pictures off the wall, and then my dog, my purse, my partner. Pretty basic. I now know that a lot of that stuff doesn't have a ton of value. It doesn't mean that I don't miss some things that were my mom's or my dad's, or if I had waited around and had to have the whole thought process as I was being evacuated, I wouldn't have made it out. So we want to have that thought process before. And I think I've gotten it all in.
You have, in fact, you're right on time. Thanks so much, Annie. Very good. I don't see a lot of questions in the chat, but I'm sure as we start talking, actually now we have 2 in the chat, so we'll get to those. Yeah, so I do want to share, I did put in the chat for those that want to learn more about Watch Duty Fire Safe Sonoma in our 22 season of these presentations. We used to call them the Fire Alliance meetings. We did have Watch Duty on, and I did put a link to that presentation in the chat if folks want to learn more about Watch Duty. I really highly recommend it as an app. It's pretty good. So a couple questions. One came up. Let's see, I put it in a placeholder here.
So
Yeah.
one came
Go
up
ahead.
about the what does the CEA?
Yes, thank you. I was just going to ask you that.
And truly, their site simply says an older home. So I would say anything that's 10 or 15 years or older, since all the code upgrades have changed so much in that short period of time. And then if you don't qualify, that's okay.
Okay. And then do you want to handle that other one? You might know this person from Bruce.
So Bruce's issue is living in a condominium, which there's been a lot of issues with condos when it comes to a total loss. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find your question again.
Oh, I can read it. I have it in front of me.
Perfect.
Our homeowner's insurance is written as H06 policy, from which does not cover structures. The HOA insurance is intended to cover structural damage, but its limits aren't sufficient to cover a loss of most or all of our community homes in a catastrophic fire. That means we will all be subject to the dreaded special assessment in the event of a catastrophic loss. Is the coverage available under H06 type policies to cover special assessments?
Special assessments, I'm not up on, to be very honest with you. Do we have a lot of issues with condominiums? Yeah, we're seeing that massively in Hawaii. Unfortunately, so in your policy, there is loss of use, but it's based on a percentage of what you're paying for your dwelling. And since the HOA has to cover the outside of the structure and you're just covering either stud to stud or sheetrock to sheetrock, that becomes problematic because you won't have enough loss of use to make it through the process to have you covered. And we haven't found a good solution to that. I would ask your insurance company, your agent, if they can increase that in any way. But you're going to have an issue all the way around with that whole process. And your HOA obviously needs to up their coverage. And that's easier said than done because some insurance companies just won't do it. They don't want that big of a risk. And insurance agents aren't necessarily advising this, but the only thing we've been able to come up with is actually breaking up the condominium association into smaller lots. So maybe right now you're covering an entire unit. You break it into 3 different ones with 3 different policies, probably from 3 different agencies that are willing to take that risk. The biggest thing we're finding is that insurance companies don't want the whole risk of 100 units, 200 units. So that's becoming problematic.
Okay, another question dropped in the chat. Very odd thing happened with my CSAA, or actually happened, yeah, homeowners insurance in October. They sent me a check for the entire year's insurance. I just paid this in late September. There was no explanation in the envelope with the check.
So you need to call them and ask them
Yeah,
why they dropped you. And if there is, so they have to give you 75 days notice. That's California law. And you need to ask them if you can, whatever the reason is that they dropped you. If they say it's just because of your zip code, you don't have a lot of wiggle room there. But if they say it's because we saw this or this needs to be fixed, ask them if you can have that opportunity to fix it. Please make sure that anytime you talk to your insurance company about anything, that you follow it up with an email.
yeah.
Talk to you on this date. These were my questions. This is what I heard you say. In Colorado, in the Marshall Fire, many people asked to have their insurance raised. Their agents told them that they were sufficiently covered. They had somewhere between 325 to 350,000 for over 2,000 square foot properties. But if you don't have that in writing, you're dead in the water. But when you have it, you can go to the Department of Insurance and say, this was my ask. They said I was sufficiently insured, and it can move forward from there.
Yeah, it looks like they do have a follow-up to that question. The chat after panicking called CSAA and they immediately re-established my insurance. The reason I mentioned this is that perhaps many insurers have a staffing problem and are employing very inexperienced staff. So hang in there until you can talk with a representative for more information. So yeah, your advice is spot on. Just call them immediately and figure it out. I'm curious to know if you had to give that check back or whatever happened with that. While we're waiting,
I can answer that.
yeah, you gave it back. Or wrote another check and put that one in the bank. So I have a question that we did speak to in an earlier live presentation you did out in West County a while ago. And it has to do with Firewise. So Fire Safe Sonoma, we're very keen on Firewise in growing. We're working very hard to grow Firewise communities in Sonoma County. So I think in that presentation, one of the biggest takeaways I had was that it was pointed out by the woman from the California Insurance Commissioner's Office that recently it was mandated that insurance company, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but as I understand it, the insurance company has mandated insurance carriers in California to provide discounts for homeowners if they do one or both of the following. One, you harden your home to meet, I think, IBHS wildfire prepared home standards. That's defensible space and structural hardening. And 2, you're within a Firewise community in good standing, recognized Firewise community in good standing. Am I accurate on that?
You are absolutely. Good job. We also feel that the home hardening in the future, we don't know how long it'll take. We don't think it's going to take that long. We think that's going to be required, that you have that done to acquire any kind of insurance.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, most of them should be doing it at this point, but there is a little lag. And it's going to, it's not going to be a ton, 5%,
Right.
probably 10%. I think it goes up to 15%. But in the big picture of things, it's really about not going through the trauma of losing your house and having
Yes.
to rebuild. And, we had a lot of people in Coffey Park who had so much trauma that they had breakdowns. They didn't have them 2 weeks after the fire. They had them up to 3-4 years after. They had medical conditions. This is a hugely traumatic and stressful thing that happens. So I can't express enough how important it is just to do everything you can to make sure that you are not one of those.
Yeah. And then a follow-up to that question. I couldn't find anywhere in the mandate that said how big a discount on a premium the insurance companies were meant to provide. So that could be very minuscule, I imagine, or something larger than minuscule.
Yeah, it's generally between 5 and 15%, but
Okay.
I would almost, I bet my bottom dollar that it's going to be 5%
Okay.
in most cases.
We do have a sharp stop at 3, but I did want to just squeeze in Ken's last question there.
Yes.
So he was non-renewed by his carrier, applied to fire plan, has waited 44 days for a quote. Do you have any other suggestions?
So I would call the Department of Insurance, tell them what's going on, ask them if they can help you in any way. And this is part of the having 1,000 requests a day for the California Fair Plan. So if you do get a non-renewal, that's one of the reasons why you have to get right on it, because it gets scary. Don't give up on getting regular insurance, though. You can go on to the Department of Insurance's website. They'll have a list of admitted insurance carriers, and you can actually print that up. There's about 100 of them. And you yourself can go down the line and call. So you'll call Farmers and you give them the address and they'll say, no, we can't. And then you ask them, who did you try to sell it to? They all have 4, 5, 6 different companies. At the end, you'll find some small companies like Mercury or trying to think about the other, Zurich, and you may get insurance that way. So it's worth 3 hours to do that periodically.
Wow.
And the California Fair Plan they are required to cover. So as long as we don't have each agency to sell insurance in California is required to take a percentage of what they sell in the California Fair Plan. So as long as we don't get upside down on that, which is why we're working so hard. The commissioner is trying to get State Farm to start writing new policy again, because we do not want that to happen.
Yeah. We are just about out of time. There is one question that I do want to have you respond to. Does the California Fair Plan have to cover you if no one else will?
Yeah.
Okay.
They do at this point. So that's what I was just talking about with the
But can.
each one has to do a percentage of what they write in California. Could we get upside down on that? We could, but I think that's the major thing that they're trying to avoid at this point.
Right.
Great. And Chris and Bruce both wrote comments in there, sharing their support for their Firewise program and the benefits that they have received through just sharing that they are a Firewise community or in the progress of forming a Firewise community. So thank you for sharing those positive notes. It's a wonderful way to end.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Annie, for doing this. Yeah, and we'll clean up the video on our YouTube site and make it evergreen for folks. And thank you all for joining. Yeah, we had a really good group today. Check your email for something from me in the next few days and see if you won the door prize. And thanks, Marika, for helping me out as always. And then I'm sure Harry's still in the background somewhere making sure nothing goes sideways. So thank you as well, Harry, with Fire Safe Sonoma for helping us out. All right. I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day and rest of the year. And then, Marika, do we know who we're going to have next month yet?
Surprise at this point, but the 15th
Okay.
of February, put it on your calendar. I'm sure it will be great.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yep. We do this every month. So if you like it, join us again and feel free to go to our YouTube channel and see some of the past ones. You'll see them under our playlist under speaker series on our YouTube channel. And previous to that, we used to call this the Fire Safe Alliance or something like that. So yeah, we'll see you guys next month. Thanks again, Annie, so much.
Thank you
Thanks,
for having me.
everyone. Thanks, Annie.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay.